Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host and keeper, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight are minions Sora Luna
Good evening.
and SkepTock.
Hi, everybody.
It's everybody's a planet except for me.
You are the star that we revolve around.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
We'll just call him Sun.
I'm just like low budget Dick Cavett throwback with my stupid Dick Cavett style logo, which probably 3 people even realize what it was I'm trying to do with this thing.
I still love that though.
I do too, because why? If I'm not getting paid, I can be self-indulgent. I can do what I want.
It's so 1971.
Yeah,
it's just perfect.
That was the general idea. So, yes. Anyway, enough about me and my stupid logo. Sora, do you have anything you'd like to say before we get started?
There's nothing you can do at all unless you want to burn down your workplace, which we don't condone.
No.
When you have to deal with a stupid coworker. There's nothing.
not that you have to deal with a stupid coworker.
Oh yeah, no. This is not speaking from experience or
No.
at all.
Hypothetically speaking,
Yeah.
if one had a stupid coworker, you would not burn down the workplace.
No.
Okay.
That would be unfair. But,
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult lesson to learn.
Yes. I have faith in your ability to do the right thing, Sora.
Well, one more week.
One week
from yesterday, and freedom happens.
If they did,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Harry.
I was just gonna say, if they did take your stapler and you did burn down the workplace, I trust you enough that I would actually think that they probably deserved it if you did it, but not if other people did it.
Thank you.
Because you're very level-headed.
She would show good judgment before she burned down her workplace.
She's responsible with arson. The responsible arsonist, Sora Luna.
Yes.
Minions of the Zoo does not endorse arson. Okay, next.
Yeah.
Hello, SkepTock.
Irresponsible arson. Responsible arson we're just fine with.
How are things going in SkepTock land?
It's just one day after another. With nights interspersed. Mm-hmm. No, it's been good. The garden seems to be fully planted, although every time I think there's no more major tasks awaiting me, there are major tasks awaiting me. So I think a farmer's lot the work is never done. It's the ultimate in job security.
Mm-hmm.
But everything's really coming in. They're sprouting up like crazy, and it's looking like this will be the best year by far ever we've had in terms of yield. And the truth is, I'm not going to take any credit for this. This is my wife getting smarter about gardening, about just learning. We've both learned together.
Are you fans of any of the online YouTube gardening channels like Plant Abundance or any of those things? No?
Ixnay.
No, okay. Because I've actually received some pretty good advice from Plant Abundance on I'm not going to plant a bunch of goji berries and run around there and graze like I'm in some kind of primitive tech channel like he does. I'm not going that far, but in terms of like how to prune trees, he's actually given some pretty good advice.
I would like to get hooked into that, and I actually would if you've got some things that you'd like to watch, I would like to get more educated about that sort of thing. I really would.
And actually, the books that you get for studying for your master nursery certificate are pretty good too. I know I don't have them, but I know people who have them, and I'll ask questions, and they'll just go here, and they'll send me a picture of a page. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, it's the stuff that we're growing is it's basic. We grow melons, beans. Anybody can grow beans. Peas, a little harder to grow, but most people can do that. Corn, impossible. Still impossible. But potatoes, carrots, that kind of stuff, is essentially just, make the soil right. That's a big key. And then just, keeping fertilizer on them and keeping the weeds out, keeping them watered. That's basically, that's my whole gardening routine. Now there are 1,000 little things that we do here and there, to, get the peas to crawl up the trellises the right way. But, that kind of stuff, we've learned a little bit of art like that. But anyway, for those of you who have tuned into the meetings expecting political discourse and have wandered into a gardening discussion.
Yeah. Tonight on NPR, Garden Talk.
Garden Talk. Yeah.
Felco shears, all hyper, all function. Felco shears actually are very good. But be that as it may, let's dive right in, shall we?
Yeah, shall we?
I really need somebody to be my engineer, but we'll just do this one-man band thing here. Okay, this is a picture of Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is an idiot. Now, I think he's the kind of idiot that I don't think we need to focus on him in particular so much as just he's just saying out loud what a lot of bad people are thinking, which is, why not use the Ukraine war as a gift for clean energy efforts? Why not capitalize on every bad thing that happens to further whatever our agenda is? This guy is not, he's not very bright.
No, he's not.
He's a lot closer to the Hulk than Bruce Banner. That's all I'm saying.
Ouch.
I don't know if
It's not nice with the Hulk.
well, it goes back to Rahm Emanuel talking about there's basically no crisis that you can't make political capital out of. I'm very loosely paraphrasing. But there does seem to be this notion, right, Skep? I mean, Democrats in particular seem to be very opportunistic when it comes to something. If there's a shooting, they're on it. Any kind of weather phenomenon, whether it's too cold, too hot, they're on it. They just use whatever they have a really bad case of confirmation bias. They seem to think that every single thing that happens relates to what they want to have happen politically, which is a very convenient way to look at the universe.
It is. What I think they don't take into account is that the polity, the body politic, the group of people in America who make adult decisions and pay attention to things, it acts like a slow learning child, frankly, the American public. And what they do is they see something again and again and again, and they begin to learn things about it. Now that the Democrats have been shouting crazy shit since 2015, roughly, if you would believe Jonathan Haidt, and I think he's kind of on the mark about that, which we'll be talking about later in the show, that the American people just have gotten to the point where they're starting to expect that sort of opportunistic move by the Democrats. And as soon as the body politic says, oh, it's them again doing their thing, they stop gaining power and they start to lose power. That's usually a tipping point electorally that you can look at. I believe that you can see. It's very hard to measure this stuff, but you can kind of see it reflected in the cultural zeitgeist when you see the articles that come out and say, hey, let's take a different look at this. Let's take another look at this whole thing. And it can be anything from, vaccines to environmental questions to whatever the liberal cause du jour is. I think America is getting tired of the screaming insanity of the far left and is getting ready to come back toward the middle a little bit.
Yes, I think so. But just to look at his individual comment, taking it at face value, right? The idea that the Ukraine war is a gift for clean energy efforts.
Right.
Clean energy solutions are very long time horizon. Those are those are not things you can do quickly.
Maybe he's expecting the Ukraine war to last for 50 years.
Yeah, we're just going to, we need to cut our oil consumption in half, so we're just going to put in weather stripping really quickly, and everybody's going to drive 55 miles per hour, and just give whatever the list of things is, and then voila, we'll be where we need to be. It's extremely naive. I mean, other than just being craven and opportunistic, it's just really naive to think that we're going to solve a short-term problem with a long-term solution.
Can I ask you a question, Harry?
Sure.
When have you heard this sort of thing before?
I'm numb at this point.
The blank is a gift for clean energy efforts. The blank, the COVID virus. Hello, we've got everybody locked up in their home. They're not using their cars.
The planet is healing.
It's healing. Yes, it's healing from the evil cars.
Well, Skep, I didn't put it in the list for tonight because I just thought it was just too obvious, but Klaus Schwab's daughter is involved with the World Economic Forum. I know, nepotism amongst ultra-liberal rich people. Who'd ever heard of it? And she was actually saying that we should use COVID as a template for ways to rein in climate change.
Right. What she means is rein in and control people.
So, yes, so basically I heard that this morning when I was planning out today's show. But let me move on to the next thing briefly, which is right here. Now, this is about Activision, and since Functional is not with us tonight, I am going to skip over the part about them losing users and all that sort of stuff, unless you have some opinion on Activision and being losers in terms of subscribers and being a bad company, Sora.
I haven't touched any of their games in like 10 years, so
yeah,
no.
and it's basically you're the problem.
Games?
These are the electric games. But if we go to the end of this article, let's just tie this in to what we were just talking about. Activision Blizzard's earnings release today was not traditional, with the company not conducting a conference call, issuing an official presentation, or giving financial guidance. That's because of Activision Blizzard's proposed sale to Microsoft. This is expected to close, yada, yada, yada. So, recently, a group of U.S. senators, including Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, said that they are deeply concerned about the sale and specifically what it might mean for the company's workers. Hold on. You're worried about the well-being of the workers if Microsoft buys the company. Let that sink in. They're worried that the workers aren't going to be treated fairly by Microsoft.
After the crap that Blizzard Activision has been going through in the news.
There's a lot of things you can say.
Worse.
There's a lot of things you can say about Microsoft. But
mistreating their employees is not something they do.
Right. This is not like part of Microsoft's culture at all.
Here at Activision Blizzard, we're a family. We totally didn't do any of the things that we've been accused of this past year and a bit.
Well, I mean, other than Bill Gates kind of passive-aggressively asking women out to lunch who weren't interested in dating him. Other than that, I mean, I'd say that on the whole, their situation would be better with Microsoft than 99% of other companies in the world. Microsoft knows how to actually manage employees and take care of them and do professional development and stuff. They're not a bunch of rubes. They kind of have it down to a science.
You might say. No,
yeah.
In terms of employee management, they're excellent.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of Oracle.
So shut up, Bernie Sanders. Shut up, Elizabeth Warren. You're just making yourself look stupid. But they see an opportunity to go, ooh, look at me, I'm relevant. And then they just say stuff, and I'll bet you that most of the trained SEALs that think these people are good are just going, oh, good point there, Liz, good point. It's like, no, you're an idiot. Anybody who thinks for 5 extra seconds is going to realize that you're not even making any sense. Anyway, moving on. Elon has been driving people absolutely crazy with the purchase of Twitter. And we don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but this is one of the things that he was tweeting about. And people are claiming that he's somehow far left, right? So he tweeted this diagram, which we can see more easily here. Essentially, Elon isn't really moving. It's just the Overton windows moving around him.
Yes.
This was very problematic for some people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the fun part of that is? The center migrating to his left.
Mm-hmm.
That's the interesting part of that. That's Elon's perception that he has not moved at all. He really thinks he has not moved. Now everybody moves. Everybody makes little decisions, that in the big pile of which way you move, left or right. We move left and right almost on a daily basis, minor little adjustments. But over time, I would be surprised if a mind that dynamic didn't continue to develop and change. I would be surprised if he is rooted to the spot he thinks he's actually rooted to. I think he probably, I think this probably suffers from the problem that I pointed out on other shows, that it's not really a left and right thing anymore. That's not the right way to judge things in terms of politically. But do you want to have a strong central government, or do you want to have a lot of individual freedom? I think that's a more valid axis for the divide between people right now.
Well, just for fun, here's my political compass test, and you can see the red dot right on top of Gary Johnson's head. That's basically me. And now, if I was to retake this, I'll bet you I would probably be in not quite the same position.
Let me see the red dot. Okay, so you're.
I'm basically a zit on Gary Johnson's forehead.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I see it now. Just for purposes of the drill, if you go to the origin point, the 0 point,
mm-hmm.
go straight down about 1/3 of the way, and one square to the left, that's me.
Commie.
Yeah, I'm in the communist quadrant. I think that's hilarious.
I think it is too, which just shows how inaccurate these stupid tests are.
Yep.
Let's see if I can get these. Oh, look, everything is working technically. Nothing can go wrong now. I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
It worries me. It worries me when the tech.
Now.
It worries me when the tech starts to function. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, let's see.
Or you could also do the old consultant's line. Don't look amazed when it works.
Yeah.
Dude,
well, it's confidence.
You have to be a software developer.
Confidence is one of the most important things you can have as a consultant. I mean, how would you feel if your doctor kind of acted like, well, not sure this is going to work, but we figure, you seem like a good sport. Let's just try it out on you.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, that's
right.
pretty
normal,
normal, actually.
I think everybody here knows at this point that Biden has set up his disinformation board, headed by a Harry Potter LARPing Russia expert.
Who cannot sing Mary Poppins songs.
I would say she's probably better than average, but she should still not sing in public.
Yeah, well, plus she should have a little bit of decorum. She's supposed to be a serious person, and that is simply not something you can do. That seemed to make light of her area of expertise, and that's a credibility thing that's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't seem like a serious person to me.
No, not at all.
Which also ties in with a thing we're going to be talking about a little bit later. I mean, misinformation is something of a problem, and the way that Twitter works does have some problems, which we will discuss later with the Haidt article.
Mm-hmm.
But she really is not the solution to the problem. In fact, I'll go out on a limb, and I can tell you that from Elon's public statements, he clearly has done his homework. There's a number of things that he wants to do to make it a better platform, which are going to piss people off on both the left and right extremes.
Oh, yeah.
He's even said so. Getting rid of bots is actually critical to making the experience better. And one of the things about bots, even though they may seem like not a big deal now, is if we don't want people to be overwhelmed, you know, I'm talking about from a usability perspective, not like the government has a right to censor perspective. But if you don't want users to be overwhelmed with AI BS, you know, AI bullshit, they're going to have to do something about the bots very, very soon, because they're already at the level of sophistication where they're drowning out regular users in a lot of cases.
One of the things that I think you'll see him look at, I don't know if he'll change it, but the way that the retweet works, I'll bet that's going to get visited.
Yep.
I'll bet there's going to be something like something that you send out will not be eligible. Something that you retweet will not be eligible for retweeting again. It'll be something like that.
I think, again, it's unfortunate that things are ordered the way they are. I blame me. One of the suggestions was that the second or third time something's retweeted, you actually force somebody to cut and paste the text into a new window, versus just having the easy button where you just go, yeah, you know, preach on, and then you just hit the retweet button. But it's mostly just to sort of cause people to make sure that people are real people. Obviously, it's easy to fake that with a bot, but just to sort of give people just a moment of pause to think about whether they actually want to do something like that, because the shift toward trying to ride the viral wave has been extremely disastrous for social media.
Yeah, I actually I have a different view than Hate and almost everybody else, because I think the thing that we think, the disaster we think we see happening in social media is just a reflection of the ability to obtain more information faster than we've ever been able to, combined with the ability to exchange said information plus our own invaluable insights with one another. I think that's what all this is in relation to. And the stuff that's going on with social media is what you're witnessing is really, you know, gross growing pains up close and personal. And it looks nasty, it looks horrible, disastrous potentially, but in 10 years, you won't even think about this. You'll hardly remember this, I think.
Maybe.
And part of the reason is because I think that social media is about to evolve into something that we haven't anticipated. And I still don't know where it's going, but I don't think it's in a stable configuration. I don't think it's in a place where it's going to, you know, for 100 years, the killer app in America was the U.S. mail, right? I don't think it's going to settle down into that kind of stasis for a long period of time and look like this.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reorder the show. Geodes, hang on. We're going to talk about the first thing in the discussion block while you're sharing links.
I'm sorry, did I just blow up the show?
No, you didn't blow up the show. I'm just sitting here thinking I'm going to reorder it because I can.
Okay.
There's an article in The Atlantic, which was written on April 11th by Jonathan Haidt, who's a sociologist, right? That's the right term for his profession, I believe. And he's a very bright man and not particularly, I'd say he's sort of right of center, but generally a centrist, kind of like I consider myself. And he has a very long thesis in The Atlantic, which we're not going to read the whole thing, called Why the Past 10 Years of American Life Have Been Uniquely Stupid. And he basically says everything was just fine with social media up until the point where, you know, when people were just sort of making like MySpace, they were sharing things with other people that they knew online.
Right.
But once going viral became a goal, right, because people wanted sort of internet clout, they wanted to be internet famous, people changed the way they behaved online to skew more toward trying to make people that they didn't know or who didn't know them like them. So the behavior became something just entirely different than what had happened before that. And so instead of being like, here's your mom's pictures that she posted from her vacation with her new boyfriend or whatever on Facebook, it became, what 160 characters can I type out now that'll get people riled up and get them to hit that retweet button right away?
Right.
And
one of the things. Go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to do a sort of a capsule summary of this 55-minute long thing. So, so he's saying that basically what we've done is we've undone a lot of what Madison and the founders tried to do, which was to make our political process more deliberative, to put in checks and balances, and to some extent free people in government from responding to the immediate passions of the mob. If you look at the way our government's set up, that's baked into the system. But Twitter undoes all of that, because when the mob starts, somebody says something outrageous, then somebody else gets outraged, and it just becomes this swell of viral activity. Now, Twitter has done a very good job of being completely biased and suppressing a lot of what's happened on one side versus the other. There are definitely things you can say on Twitter and things you can't say on Twitter pre-Elon.
Right.
And it's not really good for our democracy. But that aside, the very way that Twitter tends to work is probably not good for our democracy. And you look at instead of people voting and deciding to change the trajectory of things, you see mobs organizing on Twitter, going out and tearing down statues, erasing pieces of history.
That's just speech. That's just speech.
Speech is fine, but it's not.
I think you've got a better argument with saying the bots are a disaster.
Well, the bots are a disaster.
That's artificial speech. That's speech that isn't real. That's dishonest amplification of speech.
Well, okay, hold on. So going forward in his very long article, which is totally worth it if anybody wants to take time to read it. By the way, there's an audio link, so you can just listen to it while you're doing other stuff. This sort of culture of sniping at each other and tearing people down and looking for outrage has caused a lot of these groups to sort of attack each other internally. Like, you're not a true conservative, you're not a true progressive. And because of the way the shots, everybody's basically in a circular firing squad online, it has made all of us dumber as a result. Because all an academic has to do is just say one wrong word in a tweet, and their whole career can be over.
Yes.
This is not a situation that makes us smarter as a people.
No, it isn't.
And then he did actually suggest that he said he didn't know how to fix the internet, but just talked about some of the possible options. One of them is you'd have fewer problems with people just saying ridiculous and sometimes illegal things if everybody was validated or verified. It doesn't mean that you can't function anonymously, but you can't just sign up without at least sort of saying, I'm the person on the other end of this statement. And I don't have a problem with that.
No, that was his best suggestion, I thought, in the whole article. Most important suggestion. He had several good suggestions, but that was the most important one.
Let's see. Okay, Sorry, I am speaking informally. I know we're not technically a democracy. I'm just looking at what the chat's saying. I know we're a constitutional republic. And I think most people here know that we're a constitutional republic.
We do. We do understand this. One of the things that he talks about is factionalism. And he goes all the way back to Madison and Federalist Number 10 and all that stuff. And the warnings from both Madison and Adams, actually, from about factionalism, and these guys were afraid of the growth of political parties. That's what freaked them out. And now we don't even bat an eye at political parties. That's why I tend to think that we have a similar form of myopia. We have the same myopia that Madison did in his time. That we see this stuff going on with social media and we think that's the problem, but that's not actually the problem. The problem is something deeper and more fundamental. And at its base, it's all about squabbling for scarce resources. It's nothing. It's always that, because that's always what motivates everything. And change my mind. The how we do that, how we formulate that struggle, and the fairnesses or unfairnesses therein are deeply shaped by our ability to be successful in improving our daily life. Basically, that's what really moves us. The rest of this is just Sturm and Drang. That's why, with the important exception of the bots, which are literally the artificial amplification of speech that doesn't exist, basically. Sorry.
No, but also Aiden Paladin. I know she's a big favorite amongst some of the people on more to the right, but I find her technical stuff to be very interesting. Aiden Paladin.
Aiden. Are you kidding me?
Well, I know you've met her in real life. She's a sweetheart. She's talked about how when people feel like they're anonymous, they don't exactly become the best version of themselves, to put it nicely. I think that if people function, I think the discourse would be a lot more civil if they knew ultimately that they were speaking for themselves and not as just some random hooded member of a mob, a Twitter mob online. I do think we would get better behavior from people. So I kind of think that some sort of system where more people can get check marks. They don't necessarily have to tell the public what their name is, but to get some kind of check mark type thing, you have to basically prove that you are a real person. And the amplification of messages from non-verified sources probably needs to be turned down a bit. And the algorithm will be public. That's another thing that Haight talked about. Make the algorithm public so academics can actually look at it to see what it's doing. And Musk seems to be, I think he's read all of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he's talked to Haight or somebody like him, because a lot of the things he wants to do on his own go very much in the direction of what Haight was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of how to make it a better service. I think it's going to be a much better service that more people want to use in 6 months.
Guys like Elon Musk is an unusual guy. He will go and he gets the best and the brightest and just shamelessly takes their ideas and does interesting things with them. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has read this article himself.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
Or has had had somebody read it and deliver, the executive summary to him.
Well, Assassin of the Grey is pointing out that, being anonymous doesn't necessarily protect you. Yeah, it doesn't. And I theorized, I think was it last Saturday or was it last Tuesday? Well, one of those 2 days, that I'm not exactly sure how this is coming about. I think that there may be people in places like Twitter who are leaking the information in some cases. And just because somebody's registered doesn't mean that they don't have some sort of right to privacy. But if somebody does make a real threat of violence, something actionable, there's no reason why they shouldn't be held accountable to that. And I'm talking about actually illegal threats of violence, not just, not just words people don't like.
Right. Well, words can be violence, of course. But that aside, yes.
Yeah.
No, where I think this will end up heading is to a place where there is some sort of independent registry that probably is not part of Twitter, where people have to obtain some sort of certificate of realness. I don't know what form that would take, what tests you would have, what kind of documentation you'd have to do, but that will issue you a certificate so you can go get a Twitter license, and the Twitter license will be for that verified name. That's all I can think.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Elon comes up with. I'm sure it's not going to be boring. So,
well, he's already done boring.
Yeah. So let me get us back on track. So this is what's her name again? Jankowicz, and I do think it's funny that she's in this particular thing. They're talking about her online mockery of Kamala Harris as a threat to democracy and national security. I think we have a pretty good idea of what kinds of things she thinks are disinformation. She is easily just about the worst person you could put in charge of something like this. I mean, I know Joy Reid would probably be worse because she's simultaneously dumber and even more bigoted.
Oh yeah.
But this woman is pretty bad. I mean, it's almost bad enough that if I was being cynical, I would think that they're floating her just because they know she won't go over, and then they'll replace her with somebody that's more of a stealth candidate who's just as evil.
Yeah. She's a hatchet-faced harridan who, wants to lower the boom on all the people she disapproves of, which is most people, because this is a person who disapproves of everyone who doesn't think exactly like she does.
Mm-hmm.
That's the left's biggest problem. Is that's the template for people like Rashida Tlaib and AOC and the far left. Is they're completely they take offense if you have a different point of view. If you don't accept every single thing that comes out of their mouth, they look at you like you're a criminal.
Yep.
And they accuse you of making them feel unsafe, or that you've committed your words committed violence against them.
Yep. Jankowicz argued that Congress should create new laws to block mockery of women online, citing the volume of gender disinformation used to criticize Harris. Congress should reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act and include provisions against the online gender-based harassment, Jankowicz wrote in a Wired article highlighting the abusive content sent on social media to women in public life. It's funny how with these folks, women are simultaneously strong and fierce and independent, but they need a fainting couch every time somebody says something about, Kamala Harris and needing, her interview process involves knee pads. We'll make jokes about her and Willie Brown. I don't really care about her and Willie Brown. Honestly, I think it's just kind of funny and salacious. I'm more concerned with her very mediocre academic career in terms of the law. I don't think she should be in any kind of position of power based on what I've been able to see. She's just not. I mean, she's below midwit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Kamala Harris is proof that a stupid person, if their butt is hard enough, can make it through law school.
Yeah, pretty much.
She had an iron butt, sat through enough tutoring sessions that they eased her through. She still failed the bar exam, but I wouldn't be surprised if, I'm not going to say that.
Well, we talked about this when the Amy Coney Barrett nomination came up.
Yes. I
can't remember, I think it was on your show on Tuesday where we sort of went line by line comparing Harris's trajectory with Coney Barrett's.
Yes.
And the difference in them from a scholarship perspective is pretty staggering.
It's just absolutely.
It's not even close.
I was going to say black and white.
It's not like the movie Ford versus Ferrari. It's more like the movie. What would it be? Yugo versus Ferrari.
Yeah, like Lada versus a BMW.
Exactly. Okay, enough of me being unkind to Kamala Harris. She can't help it if she was dropped on her head as a
being
kid.
Unkind to the communist automobile industry. So,
yeah, and Brianna Wu has decided to throw her hat into the ring. Apparently, she is in charge of the Rebellion Super PAC. She's the executive director. And she's worked with the Twitter Trust and Safety Council to help improve Twitter's policies following Gamergate. It's hard for me to care less about something than what Brianna Wu thinks about anything.
This poor horse is just, it's already disintegrated and it's fertilizing the flowers. Just let it go.
Yeah.
That horse is dead. It's been dead for some time.
Please. It's inhumane at this point.
I'm not going to play any of this video because it's hard. It's stupid for me to talk about how much I don't care and then hit play on this thing. So I'm just not going to subject anybody to this crap.
My old house is in that picture.
It's true.
If you look at it where the trees just go off the screen on the left-hand side, past the bridge, that is exactly where I lived. I looked through those trees that you're looking at. I can look through those trees and see the Bay Bridge out my front window.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, you've lived a life of privilege, Skep.
It was a life. Yeah.
That's a beautiful area.
I was a young naval officer. Do you know how much money I made that year as an ensign in the Navy?
What, like 18,000 or something like that? 12? It's not much.
It was $11,500.
Yeah. Of course, that was a long time ago.
This is the 1800s.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's back when you had to eat hardtack.
Okay. That's right. Hardtack, salt tack, actually. Yeah.
Make that go away. Oh, you have to leave that up longer. Why do so many progs have horse faces? Good question, Jack. I don't know.
Yeah.
I am not an expert on this particular topic.
It's the same thing like during the what's it called? I'm sorry, I'm tired. My brain's going. The Prohibition era, right? The whole no lips that touch alcohol will touch ours, and you see the women in the photo, and you're like, it's okay. I respect
touch
this.
Wine will never touch mine.
It has the same mood, you know.
Oh gosh. All right, enough of Brianna Wu's face. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but I was sort of wondering where Dr. Drew Pinsky was. Dr. Drew is one of those people on YouTube that I subscribe to, but almost never actually watch their content. It's mostly just in case he does something that I care about. I just want to know what's on his channel. And it's not because I don't like the guy, it's just that I only have so much time in the day.
Right.
But I had noticed that he sort of seemed to disappear. Apparently, vaccinated, boosted Dr. Pinsky, and I have to be very careful because he got kicked off of YouTube, so I wouldn't want to endorse the opinion that got him kicked off of YouTube, made some comments about things he may have done differently if his kids were under the age of 18, vis-a-vis the vaccine. And this got him a suspension on YouTube. Wow. I mean, it's a pretty tame sort of thing. I mean, YouTube is way more forgiving than a lot of the other social media things. But at the same time, every now and then they just get really twitchy about stuff. And it seems like they go off over nothing.
They have little hot spots. That's what I've noticed. And if you step on one of those mines, you're done. And COVID and vaccine seem to be one of those mines.
Yeah, this last little bit I thought was kind of interesting, though. He says he has 58,000 subscribers on YouTube with over 3.8 million views. Meanwhile, over on Rumble, he has 113,000 subscribers. Now, I don't know how many of those are bots, because I believe Rumble has a bot problem, too.
Yeah.
But that's not an insignificant number. I mean, that's almost like Rumble is a valid alternative to YouTube for somebody like him.
Let me ask you a question, Harry.
Sure.
What percentage of Twitter users do you think are bots?
I don't know. I would just be guessing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just go out on a limb and say 20%.
Really?
It might be that high, but you know what? It almost doesn't matter. Because the real question is what percentage of the tweets being put out are being put out by bots?
Well, that's what I mean. Okay. what percentage of Twitter traffic do you think is coming from bots?
Probably about 5-10%, something like that. But it's fairly influential. I mean, it's about spreading.
Yeah,
it's about sort of subtly driving the conversation in a particular direction. It's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's what that's the business of the bot. And it doesn't mean that they drown everybody out. It's just that you just have to kind of get that wedge in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
No, I think you're right that I think what they do is bots mostly don't care about most of the area that Twitter covers. Bots don't care about your Aunt Susie's hysterectomy or your cat. Bots care about whatever issue they got created to promote. And so I tend to think that they're actually a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the users and a slightly greater, possibly a slightly greater percentage of the overall traffic. So maybe they're 0.1% of all the users on Twitter, but they're responsible for maybe 1% of the content.
Right. It's hard to judge how many of the tweets are done by what number of the thing. If this was a thing where you gave it to me in text format, I could, awk, grep, pipe, sword.
Right, exactly.
I could do it for you.
We got it. I'm on it. I'm with you.
I don't have access to that API, or maybe I do, and I'm just not smart enough to know that I do.
You probably somebody's exposed that.
Yeah, probably. I'll just tell them I'm a researcher, and they'll give me the keys to the kingdom. That's actually happened more than a few times.
I actually tried that. They wouldn't give it to me. I actually did. I went through that, and they said no. We don't think you're a serious developer. Fuck off.
Well, speaking of fuck off, Biden's PRO Act is a covert tax hike. Now, this article in The Hill is really weird because, because Grover Norquist wrote it. Everything is a tax hike to Grover Norquist. So trying to
that's not fair.
Trying to sort through the spin a little bit and just sort of look at the facts. The people who have their hand up Biden's ass and are moving his mouth want to pass a bill sort of like the one that was passed in California to force employers, or I guess people using subcontractors, to make contractors into employees. And furthermore, to break down right-to-work states' laws such that unions can be more aggressive about trying to unionize locations and hound people into joining the unions. So this is just a huge gift for organized labor that he's put together. It's just kind of terrible. So I've highlighted a few things here. There are plenty of reasons to oppose the PRO Act, which rewrites American labor law in favor of union bosses at the expense of workers. It nullifies right-to-work laws in 27 states nationwide, forcing workers across the country to choose between, kicking dues to union boss. It forces employers to disclose sensitive employee contact information to organizers during union drives, opening workers up to harassment at all hours of the day and night. They're not kidding. The PRO Act contains a stringent 3-part ABC test to determine if a worker is an independent contractor or W-2 employee. Under the PRO Act, businesses must prove that contractor is A, free from control or direction, B, doing duties outside the usual course of work or of the hiring entity, and C, customarily engaged in an independently established business of the same nature of the work performed.
I have a question here. Doing duties outside the usual course of work of the hiring entity. So you can't hire contractors for like seasonal capacity. So Disneyland cannot hire contractors to come in for the summer rush of visitors when they have higher crowds. They can't do that. They have to make them full-time employees and then terminate them.
Yep.
Fuck you.
Oh, so basically that would mean that if you were terminated, you'd have like a black mark, right?
No. It doesn't mean that you'd have a black mark if you're terminated, but what it does mean is that a bunch of employment taxes and things would have to be paid that wouldn't otherwise have to be paid.
Oh, okay.
And more to
theory,
the point,
those employment taxes though are paid via the 1099, right?
Some are, some aren't. Social Security taxes.
FITW, yes. FICA, no. You're right.
Right, and there's a number of other employment taxes that aren't paid by the individual. Yeah. SDI, for instance, is another one of them.
Right.
So, this is kind of a problem because I mean, I definitely know people who don't work exclusively for one company, or who do work exclusively for one company, but they have a certain kind of expertise that they want to bring in to the company. And there may be overlap. It may just be that they're much more at a much higher level of expertise than anybody they have on staff. But it's not that the area of work is unique. I'm trying to phrase this carefully. So, sometimes it's just that if you look at somebody as an employee, there's a limit to what HR is willing to pay somebody because they've rigged the system. They say, you've got this classification, this is your salary range, we can't pay you anything outside of that. And in those cases, a lot of times, if you want to hire somebody to come in to do something specially, you have to pay them as an independent contractor. And they want to be an independent contractor. And this interferes with people's ability to engage in commerce on terms that they both agree with. This is complete nonsense, and in California, it didn't go particularly well. It says, workers have seen this movie before. California enacted an ABC test as part of Assembly Bill 5, which Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law in January 2019. The test was so reviled that nearly 59% of Californians voted to implement an exemption for rideshare drivers in November of 2020. Because essentially, we couldn't get Uber drivers. Because Uber was not going to hire these people and all make them employees. And make them all employees. Mm-hmm. So they had a constitutional amendment passed as part of the initiative process. And even in liberal California, 60% of people said, no, shut up. So it's so bad. So the thing he's pushing is so bad that 60% of Californians think it's a bad idea in a lot of cases. Anyway, not spend too much time talking about W-2 employees and tax law. Anybody have anything else before I move on?
Just real quick on this PRO Act thing. He can't do that by executive order. He's going to have to try and pitch this to Congress. It will never pass. This is called, hey, I tried, I did my best. That's what he's going to take back to AOC and that mob. He's going to say, hey, I did my best. I was there for you. We're all in this together. Keep up the good fight and all that stuff. Meanwhile, he's going to wipe his brow and say, thank God that's over.
Come on, man. Easter Bunny told me to do it.
As crazy and as senile as Biden is, he does know. He is enough of a political realist to know that the squad is boop shoopy crazy and that they're fundamentally different from most of the rest of his party. The Democrats are not 100% crazy. There really are two different factions in them. And that's going to be interesting to watch. I think that's one of the most interesting things to watch is watch what happens to the Democratic Party over the next, really, it's going to happen in the next 4 years or so.
Yeah.
Anyway, watch the space.
Watch the space. Absolutely. Moving on. Let's see. Now I'm a bad person. Okay. I freely admit it. I'm not pretending that I'm not, but when I first read this, proposed menthol ban divides black leaders. So essentially the people in the White House have decided to white knight by saving, African Americans from themselves by banning the sale of flavored tobacco products. Because it just so turns out that the vast majority of these flavored tobacco products are used by people in the black community. Now, the point of this article here is that they're saying, come on, we don't actually want another thing that you can have the police come after us for. So if you find somebody selling menthol cigarettes at a corner store in a black neighborhood, they don't want there to be another reason for the police to come in there and give them a hard time.
How instantly do you think the black market, so to speak, will develop.
Oh, I mean, instantaneously, but I feel like there's a point that everybody is missing. Okay, the first thing that popped into my mind is, how easy would it be to take a regular cigarette and turn it into a menthol cigarette? I mean, has anybody thought for just a moment that it's absolutely trivial to take a regular cigarette and make it into a menthol? You could just get like a pocket, right? Throw some cigarettes in there and a couple Hall's cough drops. Just let them marinate for a couple days, and then you have a menthol cigarette at that point. It's a stupid law because it's trivial. You can just make mentholated cigarettes yourself out of regular cigarettes.
Go to cheapasmokes.com, by the way, if you want to find out how to do low-cost smoking. cheapasmokes.com will have your answers for you. And they actually run you through creating a menthol cigarette.
Do they now?
They sure do.
It's just horribly patronizing, and it's white knighting, and it's just all of the bad things. Because we always run into these cases where the progressives and the liberals seem to think that black people aren't smart enough to find a Kinko's to photocopy their license, or can't figure out where the DMV is, or don't have a data plan on their phone. And I don't get why black people aren't really pissed off at this point. I would feel really insulted by the Democrats if they constantly come up with policy positions that make it sound like they think I'm a child or an idiot.
That would be all of them. But yeah, I mean, that's something that the Democratic Party does routinely, is to infantilize ethnic groups, particularly blacks. They're terrible about it.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see.
It's patronizing and insulting.
All right. Well, do you have anything you want to say about this, Sora? Menthol
fun.
Cigarettes. People who use menthol cigarettes.
I don't smoke, so.
I don't either.
Do they have cigarettes in Canada still?
Probably.
There was that episode of the Trailer Park Boys where they tried to set up a model train to smuggle cigarettes across the border.
Is that Canadian criminal show?
That's that Canadian criminal show. They actually stole this train from Patrick Swayze, and they were going to call it the Swayze Express, and the whole purpose of it was just to move cigarettes across the border. Ridiculous show. I actually really like the Trailer Park Boys.
I don't know. All I know is that a couple years back, my mom's good friend here, when we were in Romania, she wanted us to bring her back some menthols. I don't know if we have them here. I don't think we have them here anymore. I'm not sure. But for some reason, she wanted them from Europe. And it was the same year that the EU banned all flavored because they... what was it? It's something like Save Our Children. Any flavored cigarettes are more enticing to kids or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that. Or health benefit or something. But basically, because you can get floral cigarettes in Europe. Those are really pretty. Like in Romania, they had lady cigarettes. I don't know if they still exist. I actually quite like the smell of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very dainty, very thin, usually have pretty packaging. So like marketing's on point, and they would have a perfume. So you'd have a rose or a violet or like a I don't know, some other thing. And when you smoked them, but it's just a tobacco cigarette with more chemicals in it, right? So you can get cancer faster, but they were nice.
Well, my grandfather used to smoke a pipe, and so did my dad for a while. And they would use this sort of rum-soaked pipe tobacco. And unlike cigarettes, that stuff just smelled amazing. It's like candied smoke. I can totally see where it might be slightly more addictive. I also think it's none of the government's damn business, and they can just shut up.
Exactly.
I mean, of all the addictive things there are in the world, really, this is where we're going to pay attention. If you want to slap another label on the side of it that just says Beyonce says people who smoke are idiots or something, I mean, that's fine. You can do that, but I just think this is dumb. Anyway, moving on. Oh yeah, I had this in the plan. Swedish Prime Minister says integration of immigrants has failed, fueled gang crime.
What? That seems strange.
It seems strange, but it really just goes to show you how long does it take somebody to realize that they've made a horrible, horrible mistake about what they think is going to happen when they bring in people that are not compatible with whatever form of government they're using. I'm being careful now.
We never should have had the form of government that had required people to be stupid to be in it. You know, fucking Sweden. What did they think was going to happen?
It's a segregation has been allowed to go so far that we have parallel societies in Sweden. We live in the same country, but in completely different realities. Yeah. I mean, we have neighborhoods.
It's a no-go zone.
Well, we have neighborhoods in California that like Chinatown, right? And Chinese areas, different sorts of enclaves, Little Italy, Little Japan, Koreatown, and places where it's predominantly Mexican-American. But at the end of the day,
we have
these people
on here.
Well, these people aren't functioning under a different set of laws.
No,
they're not functioning.
They want you to visit them.
They want you to visit them. They become members of the community. They join the Kiwanis and the Rotary Club and stuff. You can have your own separate sort of cultural identity and still be part of the American melting pot. But what the Swedes did is they basically offered a bunch of free stuff to people who had no interest in integrating in with their society. Yes. And now they're screwed.
Yep.
Because are you going to kick them out? How are you going to kick them out? Are they now full citizens, or like what the heck did you do to them?
You just leave a trail of menthol cigarettes and they just follow
over the border.
Over the border. Okay.
You laugh, but that's a serious problem in Sweden. That's one that's not going to go away. And those people who are there clustered in those little communities of, predominantly Muslim communities, tightly organized around their mosques and their imams, they will never integrate into regular Swedish society. It will take generations for that to happen. And when I say generations, I really mean like 2 or 3 generations, probably 50, 75 years before all Swedes will be able to speak with all Swedes again, if it even happens then.
Sweden has a very generous and robust social safety net. And this is where the people coming in from the outside that have no interest in being part of your society in any meaningful way just take advantage of your good nature.
Yep.
The only way they can get people to leave would be to basically tear down the social safety net for everybody that they're so proud of. They have to essentially stop being Swedish to get them to leave.
And actually, they won't leave then. It will just turn them into criminals.
Probably.
I mean, you will have a giant spike in crime.
Anyway, before we get we black pill ourselves even more than we already have been. Moving on.
Sorry.
Oh wait, I probably should check to see. Let's see what the chat's saying.
Let's see. Assassin Gray says you are talking about an openly hostile foreign culture whose dictates are to colonize and destroy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is he talking about Sweden or the people who are
Los Angeles? Stay away, trust me. Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. Chat gets it. I don't need to explain any of this.
No, Johnny Blaze gets it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought it was the amazing thing is, I mean, most of this is stuff people already know, but to hear the Swedish Prime Minister say it, that's kind of huge. It's official now. You've gone full circle, Sweden. Thank you.
Yeah. Nice job.
All right. So, now I'm gonna ask you to behave here, Skep, because I know that you could talk a lot about this. But as you well know, there are many different ways that the government can buy stuff. And Trump, since he fancied himself as being quite the wheeler dealer, pushed a really good fixed price contract for the new Air Force One replacements. And it turns out that he did such a good job of negotiating on behalf of us, the taxpayers, that Boeing lost a ton of money building these planes because it was a fixed price contract. Now, the way that works is you pay a little bit more, and the company assumes the risk for any cost overruns. And oh boy, were there cost overruns on this project. We're looking at something on the order of about $1 billion. Well, for this project alone. Yeah. Sorry, it's just a ton of money that they ended up having to eat.
Because of COVID and like the supply chain
No. It's because whenever you deal with something like this, there's all sorts of risk. Right, COVID could be part of it, but all sorts of things can drive prices up. And if there's a price increase, they basically have to absorb it. They would much prefer usually to come in with a lower bid, but be in what's a cost plus thing, where essentially they would get all of their expenses reimbursed, and if they delivered on time, they'd get a few percent as a bonus and meet other kinds of criteria. There'd be milestones laid out, and they'd get paid according to that. But Trump, actually, when he was negotiating on our behalf, did a hell of a good job, because this is what he's supposed to do. It's Boeing's damn fault for agreeing to it. Nobody stuck a gun to their head and forced them to sell these airplanes below cost. Right, Skep?
No doubt about it. What strikes me as odd, and you're right, I'm not going to, because I come from procurement background.
Exactly.
I'm shocked that this was done on a fixed price. I'm shocked Boeing didn't nix a fixed price contract. I don't know how the government got them to agree to that, because that is just not the way that's done. I mean, I know that firsthand.
Yeah, well, Trump has more than a little bit of experience in negotiating deals involving things, and he basically isn't a product of the government and just came in and said, we're just going to do it this way. And they stupidly bid it too low. I'm sorry, but
yeah.
Next time, they'll be more careful, hopefully. And I have zero animosity toward Boeing. I think it's a fine company and all that sort of stuff, but it says a lot about Trump that he pushed this way. Because as you said, it is not typical for like a custom order like this, because this is a custom order to be done on a fixed price. Because you run the risk of changing requirements and stuff coming around, and then you just eat it.
Yeah, you have no baselines for something like this. You know roughly what it's going to cost, but at the end of the day, you can lose your entire profit.
Yeah, enjoy your bespoke 747.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Moving on. So what does Trudeau fly around in? Sora? Does he have like a little helicopter or something? Like a Cessna?
Beaver water plane.
like a twin engine plane with little floaty things on it, so he can like
yeah. I don't know. Something where he takes all his family on vacation in first class seats, I bet.
Probably.
It's actually called Can Force One. Is what it's called. And Trudeau's new plane to replace damaged Can Force One could be fast-tracked for replacement. The PM's plane is part of a fleet of 5 Airbus 310-300s, and it is expected to cost from $1 to nearly $5 billion to replace all the aging planes. So Trudeau uses 5 Airbuses together.
Wow. I'm sorry, Sora. I don't mean to be offensive here, but your country is not that big. I mean, in terms of money,
we're not.
That is like a ton of money. I mean, as a percentage of income of gross national product, Trudeau is spending an awful lot of money on jets for him to fly around on.
He's spending more absolute money than the United States does on the same thing. $1 to $5 billion. We spend about $1 billion.
Well, he has to take all of his various ethnic costumes with him wherever he goes, just in case the mood to dress up as a sultan in blackface, hits him at any given moment.
Dancing boy.
All right, moving along. Gaming platform GOG now offering employees menstrual leave, and this graphic is amazing.
Why is it rusty? Why is it dried?
It's like, well, let's see, what is a period? It's a dot. How about we make them red and of varying sizes scattered around the calendar?
And that's many men will not know this, but having had a job as a janitor in a sorority house, I promise you that is an accurate color.
Moving on.
An accurate color.
Moving on. Sorry. Okay, so this company headquartered in Poland has decided that maybe it's a good idea to just basically give people time off for menstrual cramps.
You already have menstrual leave. It's called your sick days. Just take a sick day.
Exactly.
But sick days are for vacation. Sick days are for vacation. You don't want to use the sick day on being sick. What's wrong with you?
I'm allergic to Friday. Now, I've definitely known people who've had absolutely crushing, horrible problems, with menstrual stuff. But we're talking about being sick. Everybody gets sick for one reason or another. So why is one person's menstrual issues different from another person's migraine issues, different from another person's testicular torsion?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's why you get a pool of sick days.
This is stupid.
It's all terribly woke, isn't it?
Again, as someone who suffers from this crap, just take a sick day, man. And if they won't give it to you, but you still have them available, then that becomes an employment issue. Maybe that's what they're trying to. But see, this is the thing. This is gross. If I was a woman working there, I do not want my company to be able to start tracking my cycle. Okay? Because what if someone out there is, that kind of autistic enough. Sorry, I don't should use that in a it's not really derogatory, but it's sort of meant that way. And they start predicting, this particular employee's late. I wonder if they're pregnant. I'm wondering if they're going to then have to be on maternity leave. If they are pregnant, I'm going to keep monitoring this. It's sick. This is gross. I think this is terrible. I don't know. I feel like this is this kind of menstrual leave and stuff is an invasion of privacy. Just increase. What about increasing sick? Say you get a week of paid sick days, right? Increase it to 2 weeks. There you go.
It is nobody's business because people
go into
work.
I find this very disturbing.
And they say, "Where's Sora?" Right? They say, "Where's Sora?" And then your boss says, "Oh, her vagina's out of order." And
she's
then
on menstrual.
She's on menstrual leave.
I don't need people to know that, right? Or I don't really care. But at the same time, over a course, I'm telling you, there are creepy ass people who probably would get really excited to start tracking their female coworkers' cycle. I'm just saying.
I hadn't even thought about it that way. I can tell you that the conversation about this would be going a very different way if it was just me and Skep tonight. Because that wouldn't have even occurred to me. That wouldn't have even occurred to me, is the point. I have, it's like, yeah, she's right.
That's my 2 cents on this. No, absolutely not.
All right.
And then there's that fixes your, what about another person's migraine or testicular torsion? You increase the amount of sick days and that covers everybody. It's equality, whatever.
Well, this, I've actually noticed, okay, let me back up. My opinion of this is that it's really more about trying to recruit more women to work for the company. That's what this really is. It actually has nothing to do with any kind of real solution to a real problem.
I don't know if that would make me want to work for that company, honestly.
Well, maybe not you, but a lot of other people just sort of, because a number of these companies are offering part-time work more frequently, like 4-day work weeks. I do know a few women who work at big high-tech companies who have chosen to do that to spend more time with their kids.
That's good.
But it's sort of about creating a culture in the company that respects or dotes on women, depending on how you want to look at it. I think it's really about just trying to hire more women and just say, look, we think women are super awesome. All the free feminine hygiene products you want, menstrual days off, childcare, part-time, et cetera, et cetera.
So what about what's going on right now, and about all those TikTok people where they're like, I'm experiencing my first period, and I know this is being extreme, and this is an extreme example, but we're heading out that way, right?
Again, I've never seen a TikTok video where people talk about that, but go on.
It's usually, potentially trenders, but could be legitimately someone who is legitimately going through a transition, discussing having their first period. Well, obviously this is not necessarily biologically possible, but this is what they're talking about on the TikToks.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And what's to stop these people from going on vacation for a week? And I don't know what the employment standards in Poland is, but
yes, I know what you're trying to say.
This is the snowball. This is the snowball that it devolves into.
Well, again, there's always people that who will try to work the system and use other people's generosity and good nature against them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we're doing is giving people one more lever to pull. And if you tell Brianna Wu that she can't have menstrual days off, then you're a bigot. Basically, is that what we're saying?
Well, okay. And here's another thing. At least this is from my perspective here. For any ladies out there, especially if you're in Canada, if you're able to get a letter from your GP or your OB-GYN where you're saying you have dysmenorrhea, so when you have this extreme bad symptoms, pre and during your menstruation, that is a thing. Dysmenorrhea is bad. You can get a doctor's note and very quietly with your employer and your HR, explain this to them. You have, all you have to do is say, this is a note from my doctor. I will most likely be needing extra health days. And then that becomes a negotiation with contract in your employment, right?
Yeah.
People do that. I think that's perfectly okay. That's more so than this crap. Well, that's an actual health issue.
Well, individual people need individual things, and for professional positions, more and more I'm seeing doing away with the sick leave. And part of it's about what Skep was talking about earlier. People do view it as just being extra vacation days. When you tell people you can take as much time as you need, as long as you actually need it, on average, most people will take less time because they won't just go to the baseball game and, phone in sick with like baseball season flu. But you're going to run into some people who are starting to wonder about, well, if I'm not entitled to a certain number of days off, am I going to get in trouble if I end up taking 12 days off a year because of dysmenorrhea? So I'm not sure there's a good compromise here. It really depends on the person and where they work and like whether they can make the time up or not. Because if you're in a customer service position, you can't make the time up. Exactly. But if you're in other types of positions, like if you're a researcher or something, you could just come in early the next day.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, moving on.
Get that fucking diagram. Thank you.
Okay, Gary Sinise moves foundation from California to Nashville, says he looked at all no-tax states. Yeah. It's amazing. It's as if he realized that if he stays in California, he has to essentially he's in the 10% tax bracket for personal income taxes versus being in Tennessee where he's in the 0% bracket.
Right.
Not to mention he's in some kind of band, and most of the people in his band have already moved to Nashville. So it's like, this is just representative.
Dan is finally joining his band.
Exactly. Why? That's what the band is called. So duh. I think this is in the block that I described as Imagine My Shock. Yeah, because why wouldn't he?
The thing that occurs to me, Harry, is that this is Gary Sinise leaving California.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose Gary Sinise, when you lose a guy who's that good a guy, and if anybody could show me anything that Gary Sinise has ever done wrong, I'm sure he's a human being, but he's just an all-around great guy.
Mm-hmm.
When you drive him from your state because it's not livable anymore, you should be asking yourself some questions.
Yeah. The idea that he should just be privileged to be here and pay huge amounts of taxes is BS.
Well, yeah, but it's also the person. I mean, when Ben Shapiro leaves, yeah, okay. Dave Rubin leaves. Oh, that's a little worrisome because he's a much nicer guy than Shapiro, but still, okay. When Gary Sinise leaves, man, I'm asking some questions. He's a great guy.
He is a great guy. And I think in this case, saying less is saying more. I'm going to move on. So there's this problem here in Florida. There's this idea of what social emotional learning has become a target for Ron DeSantis and conservatives. For whatever reason, they've decided that teaching works better. The experts on education that are doing such a great job of educating our kids. New York Times national correspondent Dana Goldstein says Florida officials have given little evidence to back up these claims. Goldstein and her colleague Stephanie Saul reviewed 21 of the rejected math textbooks and found very little mention of race. Instead, Goldstein theorizes the objections relate to the inclusion of topics concerning social emotional learning. Goldstein says the rejected textbook addressed social emotional learning in a variety of ways. Some of them were quite awkward, she says. There was one 5th grade math textbook from McGraw-Hill that had sort of a simple fractions question, and then right underneath it said, "How do you understand your feelings?" Okay. Other social emotional lessons were more seamlessly integrated. One high school textbook asked students to rate
more seamlessly than that.
To rate from 1 to 4 how much they struggled with a concept. Another included cartoon figures, encouraging a student to ask a friend how they solved a problem.
What?
Okay. The problem here is that when we start talking about feelings, again, is that everybody's jaded. We know that the slippery slope may not be logically true, but we know that realistically it is true. And we know that if we give these people an inch, they will use it to just start talking about their private parts. Because there's a bunch of these people that desperately need to have, like, 3rd graders validate their life choices.
Is that, like, what is imaginary number? That's the measurement that they tell you in the DMs. What's
Exactly.
the real number? What you see on the date night?
Exactly.
Is that the math problem?
The goal of social emotional learning is to provide kids with a set of skills that they can draw on when they face challenges later in life, Goldstein explains. But she notes some conservatives see it as something that opens the door to larger discussions about race, gender, and sexuality. You know they're going to do that, right? I mean, I don't mean to be a dick about it, but you know they're just going to do that.
I have an article
out
of Portland. That's not really about how it's more related to the race part of education, but specifically how math is racist. And this one math teacher wants to teach basically on a CRT lens. Because she thinks that ethnic studies is a very important way to teach math.
No, it isn't.
So this is basically. I'll share the thing. I'm very sorry. I meant to send this to forward it.
Well, you can just put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm putting it right now.
Yeah.
So since we were talking about this, here's something else.
Is it so hard just to teach them math?
But you see,
teach them math.
So to quote the thing, the white supremacy culture shows up in classrooms every time. Basically, every time a teachers treat a wrong answer as wrong, that's white supremacy, and that would link. Why I'm bringing it up, this would link back into this, because you start telling the kids that if they have the wrong answer, they're not showing their work. This is obviously not going to make them feel good, so they won't socially emotionally learn. I don't know. It's so sad. It's just the baby boomers are dying out, and we're all gonna be fucked. So
Okay.
Sorry, Skep.
Yeah. Well, culturally, looking back, there have been cultures where learning is considered to be really important. It's not a coincidence that there are so many, for instance, Jewish doctors. Because when you're part of a population that has had so much bad shit happen to you, the one thing that they can't take away from you when you're being oppressed or kicked out of a country or whatever is the knowledge that's inside your head. That's the one thing that you can hang on to. So culturally, a lot of groups like certain Jewish populations have made education a very important part of their culture. You're going to learn math.
Ashkenazim.
Yeah, you're going to learn math, and the same thing happens with a lot of Asian cultures. You're going to learn math.
Yeah.
The same. Also, a lot, as we talked about earlier, Romania and in Eastern Europe, there are a lot of places where scholarship is really, really important. You don't have to talk about how the fraction makes you feel, or did the irrational number touch you in a bad place. You don't have to get into this touchy-feely bullshit about it. You understand that it's important, and you just do it because it's important.
Harry, you're going to love this. I wanted to tell you about a test that I saw. This is a real test where it is teaching algebra. And so it's a typical solve for X and Y, type of algebra 2 type problem. But as you do the algebra problem, there's also a text you have to read about some guy coming home, finding his wife in bed with some other guy, and he shoots the wife and runs off with her sister. It's this long thing, it's just like reading a soap opera, and it's meant to be, it's a fictional story. Then they say, we have some questions about the math problems you just studied and the text that you just read. And then it comes up to, the answer to the question, and then it gives the algebraic formula, blah, 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 and it has 4 choices with a value for X and Y in each choice. But there is also, with each choice, with each possible choice for the right answer for the math part of the problem, there's a thing that tests your knowledge on, did you read the paragraph about who shot who? And so you to just go to the line that says he shot his unfaithful wife, because all the other statements in there are incorrect. That's part of the answer. So if you can't do the mathy part, you just can read the text and get your answer from that. That is actually being taught in some schools.
No.
That is being taught in some schools. And I believe that came from Oregon. I will find it and send it to you.
The closest I could say is I remember thinking my grade 12 textbook, one of the problems, we had a murder mystery, and it had something to do with how long the temperature equals when was the murder committed based upon the temperature of the body found in a cold basement.
But you actually had to solve the math problem, didn't you?
Oh yeah. But I just think it's funny. I was like, okay, we went from that where basically it was just they put a story around variables and then you had to make an equation, and then to whatever that nonsense you just said.
It absolutely, the student can either choose to memorize the story and get the answer that way, or they can learn to do the math and get the answer that way, or they can do both. And that's what they're selling in this. That says we provide the flexibility for the student. It's up to the student to take advantage of as much or as little of this as they want to. That's the way they sold it.
I desperately want to talk about science now and not talk about this anymore. Are we good?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm going to skip the Catherine Boyle article, and we'll just defer that until later. That might be a good Tuesday thing.
Okay.
Okay. So, Elon Musk has been busy. He's multitasking. One of the things that SpaceX has actually done is they launched 53 more Starlink satellites. Now, what's significant about this is the booster that they used to launch these 53 satellites had actually been on a mission just 21 days before. They have the process of refurbishing the boosters after they land down to the point where it takes 21 days to get that thing flying again. 21 days.
Cradle to cradle, not cradle to grave. Cradle to cradle. Wow. That's awesome.
21 days. I mean, it's an astonishing feat to do this. And it's not like a technical thing. It's an organizational thing as much as anything. Yeah. They've optimized the design, sure. I mean, those engines are actually kind of a marvel. They're much more powerful than the designs that they started from based on the NASA stuff that was transferred via Space Act agreement to them. But
I love private enterprise.
But he and his engineers have refined the design so there's fewer moving parts. It's just easier to get these things up in the air. You know, and if it was up to NASA using the government's money, they have no incentive to make things all that much better. But no. Elon's just like, screw it. I'm going to put 57 satellites up at once, and I'm going to do it using my reusable rocket that only takes 21 days to get ready to fly again. That's enormous.
Those ideas would reflect the successful taking of chances that only occurs in private industry, does not occur in the public space very often.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just technically, it's just hard to do anything except look at this and just go, yeah.
Nice work.
Nice work, man. Good job.
Yeah. Thank God we have you.
Well, speaking of the government and things they can do to basically screw with Elon if they feel like it, FAA delays environmental review of SpaceX's Starship yet another month to May 31st. I mean, it's not like there's any rush here that progress is being held behind, but for whatever reason, they're sort of extending the period for people to whine and complain as part of the environmental impact report. Because we want to make sure that all the nattering nabobs, who of course are not going to be motivated by other things like the Twitter deal, have ample opportunity to complain about what's happening at Boca Chica.
Yeah. You know, some people just don't have a life. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You know, these are people who they couldn't even hold down a menial job in an Elon Musk enterprise.
Yeah, that's true.
And they resent that. They know that. They resent that.
Well, basically, until the final review comes in, they can't fly Starship One.
Shit.
So they say here, SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Musk said last month that the company would likely wouldn't be ready to launch the orbital test flight until May at the earliest, citing the need to build and integrate the requisite Raptor engines. Each Starship stack will need 39 Raptors, 33 for the Super Heavy booster, and 6 for the upper stage spacecraft. Amazing.
Yeah, the math of getting into space is, as you say, amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, the Elon Love Fest continues with Tesla Megapack project with 730 megawatt hours, of capacity is now up and running on PG&E's network. So where there used to be a huge PG&E plant out at Moss Landing, it was taken over by Duke Energy and has since been decommissioned, but this site is actually the home of 4 separate energy storage plans now. One of them is Vistra and one of them is PG&E. PG&E announced that they have turned on their giant Tesla Megapack project with 730 megawatt hours of capacity, and the electric grid company expects that it will enhance the overall reliability of California's ever-changing energy supply.
Tell us what a Tesla Megapack is, Harry.
I don't have the specs on the individual ones, but it is a big-ass lithium-ion battery. And the function of these things is to be able to collect stuff like solar power during the day, earlier part, and then be able to use that to run air conditioners and things throughout California at the peak during hot days, or so just to power things at night You know, it allows them to basically collect power and then shift the time of use to some other time of the day. Right. And it makes the grid a lot more reliable because it's like suddenly you've got like a UPS for the grid. You go, oh gosh, we had to take a plant offline.
Get the words out of my mouth.
What are we going to do? Oh, well, we just turned the UPS on. Done and done.
I just said, how is this different from a UPS? That was exactly what I was going to say.
It is not the cheapest way to generate power, but paired with solar, it's actually not so bad because solar is actually pretty cheap.
Yeah, a lot cheaper than wind, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. They're actually expanding this thing. It's going to be 1.1 gigawatt hours by the time they're done with it.
Now, that means that this will provide 1.1 gigawatts for an hour, for 1 hour.
But that's like having a spare nuclear reactor hanging around that you could just turn on.
I realize what that is, but
no, but I mean, just to give it a sense of scale for everybody, that's equivalent to a big one big nuclear plant.
I'm just so impressed with that number.
Yeah,
that's a battery.
And that's just one of the 4 batteries that's located out there.
I know.
It's pretty cool.
It's just awesome. That's Moss Landing, where I used to go out there and just hang out back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
All right.
Out the seaside, if you know where that is.
Oh, yeah. I know all of Central California really well. There's probably no place in Central California that you can name that I haven't been or know about. Let's see. How are we doing for time?
We have 22 minutes left.
Well, it turns out that when people read content like text on a smartphone, their breathing changes in such a way that they actually don't get quite enough oxygen to their brain. And it affects the reading comprehension and the memory of what was read. I was surprised as well, but there's these cleansing sighs that seem to occur every few minutes normally for people. Mm-hmm. And if you're concentrating, looking at this tiny little screen trying to read, it's as if you sort of forget to do those. You're so wrapped up in the event of staring at this tiny screen that you don't breathe properly. It's as simple as that. You're much better off printing if you want to actually comprehend it and remember it. You're much better off reading it on a larger screen or printing it out than trying to read it on like a smartphone.
Interesting.
Yeah. Science is cool. I was just blown away by this. Actually, Huberman of the Huberman Lab thing is the guy who brought this up. I think I have a link. Geodes, if you would, give them the link to what I call the less painful video version in the spreadsheet. So for anybody who wants to, they can just listen to Huberman's voice going through it instead of reading this annoying paper. Do you have any questions about this? Because I think I pretty much just summed it up.
No, it seems straightforward. It's an interesting interesting look at the how physiology is changed by where you read something. That certainly is not intuitive. That would not have intuitively occurred to me. This is why we need to do research, folks.
Well, I've actually noticed more when I was younger that sometimes I would just sort of forget to breathe when I was working with a computer. Mm-hmm. You'd just be working, concentrating, and then suddenly you'd be like, and you'd realize that you hadn't actually taken a breath for a minute or two.
Yes.
And I think that it's probably something sort of related to that. Now, I can't prove that, but that's just my educated guess. But they have monitored people's breathing, and it is this long cleansing sigh that people tend to let out every few minutes normally that's just completely missing from the person who's reading the thing on their cell phone. So get a tablet or use like a monitor or a big screen or print it out. There's a guy I know that used to print out everything, and his desk was just covered with thousands and thousands of sheets of paper. And I used to mock him terribly for this. I don't work with him anymore, so I don't have to offer an apology now. So that's good.
That solved itself. Very nice.
Yeah, everything's fine. All right.
Consequences non-existent.
Let's see. Get rid of this. So this is actually kind of a question. There is no answer here. For whatever reason, there is a school in New Jersey that seems to have a cluster of brain tumors. More than 100 people at this New Jersey school have had brain tumors, including very rare glioblastomas. Glioblastoma is not a common thing to happen. So the idea
it's
that
a deadly thing too.
Yeah, that more than 100 people would develop this terrible condition is insane.
That seems really suspicious.
Yeah, it's just crazy that this one school would have these problems.
I'll tell you right now, the way that you look at this, a statistical biologist would look at something like this. They're going to say, what are the ranges for the occurrence of this? And you're going to get some number. And then you're going to look at this place. And this number is going to be like 20,000 times as common as the regular number is. And there was a way statistically to say, we could see that something other than the normal set of factors is influencing this number. I guarantee you that's true for this number. Guaranteed.
Well, in terms of things that would cause a glioblastoma, this picture that I'm showing here, they're doing a radiological survey. So there's got to be an explanation for this because it's, statistically, why somebody would suddenly have this rare brain tumor, let alone a bunch of people have it, is there's got to be a damn explanation for this.
Yeah. Is there like radioactive gypsum in the water table or something? Is that, there's some way, there's something that's causing this, and it isn't, it isn't happenstance. It isn't normal probability.
No, there's always a reason. There was a village in China about 30 years ago that started showing a huge spike in stomach and esophageal cancer. And they went in and investigated and ultimately figured out that it was their diet. That traditionally in that village, they did a lot of these sort of pickled cabbage type things.
Right. Pickled cabbage. That's a huge problem. Man.
Which produced a bunch of amines, and then there were nitrates in the water. So in their stomach, they would form nitrosamines. Exactly, which is a powerful carcinogen. And so that's why all these people were dying, is because they were basically the combination of their diet plus the water supply was causing the nitrosamines. That doesn't explain this, but there is going to be an explanation, and somebody is going to find it. This is the kind of mystery where it just shouldn't exist. This should not be a problem. They should already know why.
Yes, they should. I don't understand it, man, I would be all over that. I would be sampling everything.
Yeah, no kidding.
Everything. Yeah, everything came into that town, everything goes out of that town. I would know about until we figured it out. I would know about particulate drifting in the air, everything to what they ate and drank to the ground they walked on.
Yep. Every molecule of this place needs to be turned over.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is unacceptable for this many people to have that kind of cancer.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, so the internet is a beautiful place. This person, Trung Fan, was talking about Hacker News speculating on how Twitter will integrate with SpaceX for interplanetary communication. Now, in this tweet, this person says, "I'm surprised no one has mentioned that Twitter is probably the best social media platform for interplanetary communication, where low bandwidth and delayed transmission are fundamental bottlenecks." Now, I'm going to cut this guy some slack because he's probably never had to think about these things. And it's actually fairly insightful that he kind of got as close to the answer as he did, just kind of pulling the answer out of his butt. But if you do want to build something like a space internet, being able to put 57 satellites up in a go is certainly a good start. There is actual science to this. So NASA has been working on this for a while. We know that normally when you try to get data to and from, like, say, a Mars probe, there will be a satellite in orbit around Mars, and it will beam the data down and then beam the data back to Earth. And they use big radio dishes to do this. Now, the radio dish is a parabolic dish. It's focused, so there's a focal point. And because what you're doing is you're covering huge amounts of distance with relatively small amounts of power. So you have to be right on where you're beaming that radio signal. So unlike a mesh network where you can have a bunch of cell towers and they all just send data between them to effectively form a mesh, you actually have to have point-to-point communications in space. You can't just broadcast unidirectionally. So a space internet in a lot of ways looks like an old school Earth internet, where what you would do is just have leased lines that would connect multiple sites. And then you would have some way of passing small messages, small bits of data, little bite-sized chunks between them. So in reality, a new space internet looks an awful lot like an old internet prototype from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And if we use lasers, then it's really, really cool, because that whole directional thing is a lot easier to do with a laser than it is to do with a parabolic antenna. So we totally can build space internet. That's absolutely a thing that we can do. And Tesla totally could do that. But I think unless NASA's going to give them a contract for it, there's probably not much point. So the space internet we're going to get from that Elon is putting up is designed to service terrestrial customers, not to basically have an Internet of Things that extends all the way out to Mars or Jupiter.
There's not that much demand on Mars yet for internet.
Yeah.
So it's not that important right now. But what I think is interesting is to contemplate what the challenges will be, because eventually there will be. And I think the draw of Mars, even though it's hideously unsuitable as a place to live, is going to draw us there. That will be the first planet we walk on, the first non-moon planet we walk on, I think.
Yeah.
And eventually, I bet that, we'll probably have a permanent base there, maybe even begin to develop a civilization that can survive there. It'd be very different from Earth living. But that's not for 100 years. 50 years anyway.
And any outpost on Mars will be so dependent on Earth that the idea of thinking of it as being a colony is kind of a joke. It's a colony in the same sense that we have a colony in Antarctica.
Right. Or
it's really more of
briefly colonies on the moon.
Yeah, Antarctica is a great example. You can't have a self-sustaining colony in Antarctica, really, practically speaking. I mean, could you go full-on Dr. Evil and make a huge cavern and set up a bunch of reactors and get artificial grow lights and, have beautiful female scientists in bikinis running around underneath the ice? You could do that, but you're not going to.
A more practical solution would be there is substantial arable land on the South Georgia Islands, which is close to Antarctica. You could use that as your farming place and grow your crops there. That would at least give you food. Everything else you can pretty much finesse except fuel.
But doing a space internet is actually relatively easy. The thing that makes an internet is the ability to basically move packets of information from, one place to another by using things as relays. Right? So you can have a device on the surface of Mars that may be part of a space Internet of Things. Maybe it's just some device that's performing a job preparing the site for the humans to arrive. Maybe its job is just to gather ice, right? And so you want to know how much ice is in the big hopper on the ice gathering thing. So you could get telemetry from that. And rather than having an individual antenna that goes, points at every single device, yeah, absolutely. You can have an Internet of Things. You can totally do that. You can use something, on the surface that looks a lot like what we're used to. They talk to something that's a lot like a cell tower, and then that cell tower has the laser link that goes up to the orbiting satellite. And then another laser sends it to something that's in orbit around the Earth or at a Lagrange point.
You need more than one orbiting satellite.
Well, yeah, exactly. But you can take the data from the Internet of Things on Mars and send it over this high-speed laser channel,
yes,
high latency, and then demultiplex that and have those packets arrive at research places all around the world. Yeah. So integrating the space internet with the internet that we all know and love is actually not difficult.
Your ping time is 16 minutes.
Your ping time is 16 minutes. Yeah, I just recently upgraded my my internet here at home that I'm using for the show. I have 2 gigabits, and it's working out to 2.2 gigabits up, 2.2 gigabits down, and the nearest place that I can run a speed test to is 5 milliseconds.
I can't believe you have 2.2 gigabits upload speed. That just blows my mind.
I'm actually installing some 10 gigabit networking gear tomorrow for my home lab.
That's what I'm talking about.
I am terrible.
The world according to Harry.
How you doing there, Sora?
Yay!
I'm sorry, I'm being a monstrous geek here, but
no, it's cool.
I just thought
I can't really contribute much. Well, actually, I can say we got 1 gig internet this week at work.
Nice.
All right.
Basically, we realized through our IT guys that nothing has been updated for I don't know how many years, and we basically are. It's just phenomenal. Everything is working.
Yeah.
So do any of the workstations still say Windows 95 on them, or
no.
We're pretty upgraded now?
Windows 3.1.
We got new. We got the 2 Windows 10 new computers last year, and however, what's usually my station when we're not switching around is like a 6-year-old Mac. Like it's or even older than that. It's old, but it's still going and it doesn't really heat up that much. So I refuse to say we need a new one because we don't need to spend that money.
Okay, Travis Gardner said at this time it would be cheaper to download the entire internet and loft it to Mars on SD cards. Okay, this sounds a lot like a suggestion I made one time about putting 100,000 tapes on a 747 and sending them across the country. I wasn't kidding, by the way. Yeah, sometimes what you euphemistically call sneakernet is the fastest way to get data from one point to another. I could use the network, or I could just take a piece of physical media and walk it across the room.
No kidding.
Yeah, sneakernet is legit. I have no problem with sneakernet.
One of the big uses of sneakernet is when you're dealing with someone on the receiving end of the data who is too stupid to put the data into the right place.
Mm-hmm.
You use sneakernet. Hey, I just thought I'd bring this over. You know what? I'm just going to do this for you right quick. There we go. Good job. Everybody goes home happy.
You want me to put this in the cup holder?
Yeah. It's almost, that it's almost like that at times. The story I tell about being on the help desk with the little girl who asked me, is that the typewriter part? I've told that story, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's real. That really happened. That really, honest to God, happened. Now, I provided the part about the TV set part, but, I prompted her for that. But she was the one who said, oh, the typewriter part. Looking for the light to see if it was on.
Let me see. So as a bonus here, let me do this, and I'll put this in the link because Geodes doesn't have this one. There was one more thing I'll go ahead and bring up. This is actually about malaria. So I think I told you that they've been working on like a first malaria vaccine, right? So it turns out that using the mRNA vaccine technology, they've been able to produce some sort of basic vaccines for malaria. Malaria is pretty freaking terrible. It says, during the first 15 years of the century, worldwide efforts to curb malaria cut cases by 40% and deaths fell by more than 60%. That's good. But in 2015, the progress plateaued. Since then, malaria has been quietly rising after cases have been falling steadily for over a decade. Scientists know the parasites that cause malaria have evolved to resist drugs for as long as we've had them. The terrible parasites that cause malaria go through all sorts of different parts of their growth cycle. They're not like just a regular bacterium inside the body. So what they've done is they've actually used the COVID-19 stuff technology to produce a vaccine which interferes with one part of the reproduction of the malaria. Now, it's only 30% effective, but given that fighting malaria is like a real life or death battle, you do not want to get malaria because you can die within 24 hours of getting it. Even 30% or some kind of vaccine is a really good start. They're probably going to need to start combining it with multiple things in the same jab. Go ahead.
There are 4 different plasmodia there used to be 4. I guess my data's old.
That's anyway,
okay. There are multiple plasmodia that there's falciparum is one, and one is called malariae, and then there's a couple of others that infect human beings. Do they say anything about, are they going after all the malaria parasites? Because as I understand it, there's substantial variation between those species. Those are Plasmodium is the genus.
Right.
And like falciparum or whatever that one is, and the malariae, those are species. There's several more, I think. There's 2 more that I know of.
Well, here's the blurb that I highlighted ahead of time. In late 2019, scientists in Rwanda, which is where we're sending refugees from that try to show up in England.
Surprise!
Fun with malaria.
That's a story I probably should have covered. Announced that they had funny, no boats have shown up in the last month. It's like they started saying, we're going to send you to Rwanda. It just stopped.
Yeah.
It just stopped. Nobody is trying to sneak to England on a boat now because they're being sent to Rwanda as part of a pilot program. Never mind. I feel like I'm going full resistus here. Okay. Announced that they had reason to believe F. plasmodium, by far the most common of the 5 malaria parasites and the most deadly, along the country's northern border with Uganda, was mutating to resist artemisinin. That's the drug, one of 2 partner drugs used in combination to treat malaria. Such evasion puts pressure on the other drugs to eradicate the parasites by itself. In October of this year, the World Health Organization endorsed the first ever malaria vaccine, the protein-based and snappily named RTS,S/AS01. Just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, or asshole for short.
The 4-dose vaccine advanced by landmark COVID-19 prevention efforts is a major milestone that scientists have painstakingly worked toward for decades. Yes, that's why I'm bringing it up. It is a major milestone. And this is actually probably a really good way to use the technology that they used for the COVID shots.
It's not effective enough, they're saying.
Yeah, well, they're just struggling to keep up at this point. So if you give somebody something that cuts it by 30%, they're going to take it.
That's huge, sure, of course.
And this is just the first version of this. You know they're just going to improve on it.
Do you know what the number 1 predator of human beings is listed as?
No.
The mosquito.
Malaria
kills a lot of people. Most of the people who have ever lived on Earth, wait for it, died from malaria.
Wow.
Much more than half, probably about 70%, anthropologists believe, died from malaria. Yeah.
Minions of the Zoo officially does not like malaria.
Officially.
Well, that is it for tonight's show. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we take off, Skep?
I want to come out, and I know that this may cause pain to my family, And it's requiring a great amount of courage on my part to make this statement. But I'm not
taking
afraid.
A menstrual day off, Skep?
No, it's even more in depth than that. Although it does relate to blood. I'm against malaria. We'll leave it at that tonight.
Yep. Sora?
Hashtag mosquito lives matter.
Damn you, Sora. Good night, everybody. Zoo's closed.
Night.
Good night.